Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. That morning seemed like any other in our 12 years of marriage. The familiar aroma of freshly brewed coffee drifted from the kitchen. The rhythmic shuffle of our children preparing for school echoed through the house, and the comforting routine we had built together unfolded like clockwork. To the outside world, we were the epitome of a perfect family. A beautiful suburban home, 3 wonderful children, and thriving careers. But beneath the surface, fractures had already begun to form. At first, the signs were almost imperceptible, small enough to be dismissed as everyday family dynamics. My eldest would suddenly grow quiet when I entered the room, conversations would halt abruptly, and my casual inquiries about their day were met with clipped, indifferent responses. I chalked it up to teenage mood swings, but something in my gut told me otherwise. Then came the canceled plans. My middle child, who had always cherished our Saturday morning bike rides, suddenly had excuses: homework, feeling unwell, prior commitments with friends. Whenever I suggested rescheduling, I was met with an evasive maybe another time. But that time never came. The breaking point arrived during a family dinner 6 months ago. I had just returned from a 3-day business trip, eager to reconnect with everyone. The house was unusually quiet. As we sat down to eat, I tried to lighten the mood by sharing a humorous anecdote from my trip. Instead of laughter, I was met with uncomfortable silence. Then, my youngest, with innocent confusion in their eyes, shattered my world with a single question. "Is it true you don't want to be part of our family anymore?" The words hit like a physical blow. Where would my child get such an idea? My gaze shot across the table to my wife. She kept her head down, absently pushing food around her plate, refusing to meet my eyes. "Of course not," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Why would you think that? Mom said you told her that sometimes you wish you could just leave and never come back." The accusation hung in the air, suffocating. I turned to my wife expecting denial, clarification, something. Instead, she merely shrugged and muttered, "Well, you did say you needed space sometimes." That night, unable to sleep, I replayed countless moments over the years, piecing together a pattern I had been too blind to see. Subtle twists in the way our conversations were relayed to the children, minor but critical alterations that recast me as the detached, uncaring parent. The next morning, I confronted her. She met me with defensiveness, accusations of paranoia, and gaslighting so expertly executed that, for a fleeting moment, I doubted my own memory. But I knew the truth. I had never uttered those words. And more disturbingly, I realized my children were being used as weapons in a game I didn't yet understand. As weeks passed, the gap between my children and me widened. Subtle coldness morphed into outright hostility. Attempts to bond were met with accusations that left me speechless. "Why are you suddenly trying to act like you care?" my eldest snapped one evening as I offered help with homework. The words stung, but the genuine belief behind them cut even deeper. My child truly thought I hadn't cared before. I began keeping meticulous records of our interactions, searching for patterns. What I found confirmed my worst fears. After every pleasant moment with my children, my wife would have private conversations with them. In the aftermath, their behavior toward me would shift dramatically. Something was being said, something designed to turn them against me. One afternoon, I returned home earlier than expected and overheard a hushed phone call from the kitchen. "He's becoming more difficult to handle," my wife murmured. "I'm doing my best to protect you all from his moods." "No, don't tell him I said anything. It'll only make things worse." A calculated pause. "Just remember how he acted at your recital. That wasn't normal." My heart pounded. The recital had been 3 weeks ago. Our youngest had performed beautifully, and I had been nothing but supportive and proud. We had celebrated afterward with ice cream. It had been a perfect family day, or so I thought. But what version of events had she shared with them? What twisted narrative was she feeding them? The manipulation wasn't limited to our home. Friends became distant. Parents of my children's classmates avoided me at school functions. The very community we had built together was slowly turning against me. And the worst part? I didn't even know what lies were being spread. Then came the ultimate betrayal. One evening, I found my middle child's phone unlocked on the kitchen counter. Curiosity turned to horror as I scrolled through altered screenshots of conversations between my wife and me. Messages edited to remove my caring words, leaving only fragmented, cold responses. Above them, my wife had written, "See, this is what I deal with." She had weaponized my own words against me. Confronting her would be pointless. She would twist the truth, manipulate the situation, and somehow I would end up apologizing. Instead, I took a different approach. I began writing letters to my children, physical letters they could read in private, away from their mother's influence. I filled them with memories, reassurances of my love, gentle reminders of times we had shared that contradicted the false narrative being woven. I didn't accuse their mother outright. They weren't ready for that truth. But I planted seeds of doubt, hoping they would one day grow. As I looked deeper, I found more troubling signs. Our joint finances were in disarray. Balances didn't add up, and unexplained charges appeared on our statements. When I questioned her, she spun it back on me, accusing me of control issues. Classic deflection, but I was no longer falling for it. Despite everything, small breakthroughs began to surface. My youngest asked if we could restart our Sunday morning pancake tradition. My middle child left one of my letters out in the open, a silent acknowledgement that my words had been read. But as hope flickered, so did a sense of impending doom. The intensity of the manipulation was increasing. Whatever my wife's endgame was, she was growing desperate to reach it. The shocking truth finally surfaced when my eldest stumbled upon a misplaced document, one that would unravel the entire web of deception. The revelation came on what should have been a joyous day, my eldest's high school graduation. I had planned for months, taken the day off, even practiced with my camera to ensure I captured every moment. That morning, I woke up to an empty house. No note, no message. I called my wife voicemail. Minutes later, a text arrived. "We left early. Needed to get good seats. See you there." It felt off. When I arrived 45 minutes early, I searched the auditorium, scanning rows of faces. Nothing. My messages went unanswered. As the ceremony commenced, I stood at the back, scanning the crowd for an empty seat. My search felt endless until, at last, I spotted one in the farthest corner of the hall. It wasn't until my child's name echoed through the speakers that I finally saw them. My spouse and our two younger children were seated near the front, in a prime location with a perfect view, flanked on either side by extended family members I hadn't even known were visiting. They had an unobstructed line of sight, ideal for photos and celebrations. There was no vacant seat reserved for me. This wasn't a mistake. It was intentional, a calculated exclusion. From a distance, I watched as my child accepted the diploma. I snapped photos over the heads of strangers, my hands steady despite the storm brewing within. When the applause erupted, I clapped alone. While my family embraced and shared whispers of joy, I remained an outsider, invisible. After the ceremony, I waded through the crowd to find them. When I finally reached my child, I pulled them into a congratulatory hug, but the embrace I received in return was stiff, obligatory. Then came the final blow. "We're going to lunch now," my spouse informed me, their voice devoid of warmth. "We already made reservations. For 5, not 6. Message received. That night, I sat alone in our home while they celebrated. The weight in my chest was unbearable, pressing down on me with a force that made breathing difficult. How had it come to this? When had I become a ghost in my own family? As I sat in the darkness of our living room, surrounded by photos that now felt like relics of a life I no longer belonged to, clarity struck me. No more passive acceptance. No more waiting for things to get better on their own. People don't destroy families without reason. If my spouse was orchestrating this campaign, there had to be a purpose behind it. That night, I began my investigation. I started with financial records, our tax returns, bank statements, investment accounts. I pieced together a timeline, noting when the distance between us had started. Every unexplained absence. Every unaccounted for expense. Every hushed phone call. The picture that emerged was damning. Large withdrawals from our joint savings. A post office box I had never heard of. Frequent calls to an unfamiliar area code across the country. Work trips that didn't align with any projects I knew about. Then came the most damning evidence. A lease agreement for an apartment signed 3 months prior. In a city 2,000 miles away. This wasn't just about turning the children against me. This was preparation for something far bigger. The next morning, I hired a private investigator. I don't want to believe what I'm thinking, I told him. But I need to know the truth. All of it. Within a week, he returned with findings that shattered any lingering hope I had. What he uncovered confirmed my worst fears, and revealed something far more sinister than I had imagined. This wasn't just an affair. This was a calculated erasure of my existence. I locked myself in my home office, staring at the damning evidence laid out before me. Photographs, bank statements, call logs. According to the investigator's report, my spouse had been systematically preparing to disappear from our lives. The apartment lease was only the beginning. There was a job offer letter from a company across the country, dated nearly 6 months prior. Secret bank accounts in her name, methodically filled with small transfers from our joint savings, just low enough to avoid triggering my suspicion. A second phone, used exclusively for calls and texts to an unknown recipient. Then came the most chilling revelation. Consultations with 3 different divorce attorneys, all known for their ruthless tactics. One set of notes revealed their strategy, to paint me as emotionally unstable and dangerous. Fabricated evidence was even suggested as a possibility. This wasn't just preparation for leaving. It was preparation for taking everything. Our children, our home, my future. But why? The answer was buried in financial transactions. My spouse had been in secret communication with someone for over a year, someone who was also funneling money into those hidden accounts. Someone with ties to the city where the apartment was leased. I needed more proof before I could act. For the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I pretended to be the husband still trying to mend his fractured family. By night, I gathered evidence, created secure backups, and worked with my attorney to prepare for what was coming. Then, fate intervened. One Tuesday afternoon, I came home earlier than expected. The house was supposed to be empty, our children at their activities, my spouse at work. But as I stepped inside, I heard movement upstairs. In our bedroom, I found her hastily packing a suitcase. When she saw me, her panic flickered before she masked it with irritation. Planning a trip I don't know about? I asked, my voice carefully neutral. She didn't miss a beat. Just organizing seasonal clothes. Too smooth, too practiced. Why are you home so early? She deflected. I studied her carefully before answering. I was thinking of taking the kids camping this weekend. Like we used to. A flicker of calculation flashed in her eyes. That won't work. They already have plans. All 3 of them? The whole weekend? Her response was too quick. Yes. I'll ask them directly. I wouldn't, she said a little too forcefully. You know how they hate disappointing you. I simply nodded and walked away. The moment I turned my back, I heard her reach for her phone. She was accelerating her plan. I needed to act faster. That night, I installed cameras in the common areas of our home, living room, kitchen, hallways. It was legal in our state. And within 2 days, I had all the proof I needed. On the footage, I watched her manipulate our children, showing them doctored messages and rehearsing scripted conversations designed to make me seem dangerous. The systematic poisoning of my relationship with my children was now undeniable. But before I could act, fate struck again. The sound of breaking glass shattered the midnight silence. My pulse surged as I bolted upright, instantly alert. I followed the sound to my home office. I found my eldest child standing in the wreckage of a shattered picture frame, clutching a stack of papers that should have remained locked away in my desk. The glass lay scattered across the floor, our family portrait face down, a stark metaphor for the truth now exposed. The expression on my child's face was one I will never forget. Confusion gave way to dawning horror before hardening into something resembling resolve. "What is all this?" The words came in a whisper, the papers trembling in their grasp. "These bank statements, this lease, these emails, what's happening?" The moment I had both dreaded and anticipated had arrived, albeit accidentally. My eldest had been searching for college financial aid forms in my office and had somehow gained access to the locked drawer containing the investigator's findings. The broken frame was merely collateral damage from the shock of discovery. "I think we need to talk," I said, closing the office door carefully. "And I need you to keep an open mind about what I'm about to share." For the next 2 hours, I laid everything bare. Not accusations, just evidence. We combed through bank records together, examined manipulated text messages, and discussed the insidious patterns that had driven a wedge between me and my children. I played the video footage of their mother coaching them on what to say about me. I remained clinical, factual, letting the evidence speak for itself. "So she's been lying? To all of us?" The questions came between long silences as my eldest processed each revelation. "I believe it started gradually over the past year but escalated aggressively in the last 6 months," I answered. "There's more to uncover, but one thing is clear. There's a plan. She intends to leave, and to take you and your siblings with her." "But why? It doesn't make sense." I hesitated before revealing the final pieces of evidence. Phone records and money transfers linking her to someone in the city where she had secured an apartment. "I can't be certain, but everything suggests she's building a new life without me." Silence stretched between us. Then, after a long pause, my eldest spoke. "2 weeks ago, she asked how I'd feel about finishing high school in another state. She said it might offer better college opportunities." Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. She had been conditioning them for the move, testing their resistance. What happened next took me by surprise. Instead of denial or a defense of their mother, my eldest methodically began sorting through the papers. "We need to tell the others. They deserve to know." "Are you sure? This is a lot to process." "I don't want to. Turn them against her? Like she did to us against you." The bitter edge in their voice cut through me. "We've already been weaponized. At least this time it would be based on truth." We talked until dawn about how to approach the younger ones, how to present facts without vilifying their mother, how to help them process betrayal without causing further trauma. Despite the painful circumstances, I felt a tentative reconnection forming between us. As the first light of morning crept through the windows, my eldest made a decision. "I need to check something." Pulling out their phone, they scrolled through saved messages from their mother. "She sends us almost identical texts when you're not around, always about how difficult you're being, how we need to stay strong together." If she's been lying about everything else, a pattern emerged immediately. Coordinated messages sent to all 3 children, carefully worded to reinforce their suspicion of me while avoiding direct accusations that could be disproven. But the most damning discovery lay in my eldest's email. A drafted college application. "She helped me write this," they whispered, horror creeping into their voice. The essay detailed a childhood under the rule of an emotionally abusive father, a complete fabrication yet compelling and meticulous. A tool for a future custody battle. "I never would have written this." Tears welled in their eyes. She said she was just helping organize my thoughts. The weight of the manipulation settled in, heavy and suffocating. Then, from the hallway, the sound of movement. My middle child stood in the doorway, taking in the scene. The scattered papers, our tear-streaked faces, the shattered family photo. "What's going on? Why are you both up so early?" My eldest and I exchanged a glance. The time for truth had arrived sooner than expected. "We need to show you something," my eldest said gently. "And it's going to be really hard to hear." By nightfall, all my children knew the truth, and their mother would face the consequences of her deception. Our home transformed into a war room of truth. Evidence sprawled across the dining table where we had once shared tense, silent meals. My middle child broke down upon discovering the doctored texts on their own phone. My youngest sat quietly, absorbing each revelation with unnerving intensity for someone so young. We agreed to confront her together when she returned from her late meeting. Another lie, as our investigator had confirmed she was meeting with her divorce attorney. While waiting, we prepared ourselves emotionally for the storm ahead. I just want to know why, my middle child said, voice raw. What could be worth destroying our family like this? My eldest shook their head. I don't think there's an answer that would ever make sense. At 8:47 p.m., headlights swept across the living room wall. We exchanged nervous glances, our practiced composure wavering as reality set in. You don't have to be part of this if it's too much, I reminded them. All three refused to back down. She entered the house humming carefree until she saw us. Her gaze flickered from our faces to the evidence spread before us. I watched her mind race, assess, adapt, fabricate. What's all this? She asked, forcing a concerned smile that didn't reach her eyes. My eldest spoke first, voice steady and heartbreakingly mature. We know everything. The apartment, the secret bank accounts, the coached conversations, the edited messages. Her expression barely shifted. A brief flicker of surprise, quickly masked with defensive anger. I don't know what you think you've found, but your father is feeding you paranoid fantasies. Stop. My middle child pushed forward the printed emails and custody strategy notes. Just stop lying. We checked our phones. We compared notes. This is being taken out of context, she insisted, but I saw the panic settling in, her plan crumbling around her. From what? My youngest finally spoke, sliding a sheet of paper toward her. From this? This is my handwriting, but I never wrote these words. You made me copy them for practice last month. Says Dad screamed at me and threw things. That never happened. The fabricated diary entry, perhaps the most chilling revelation of all. She had weaponized our child's innocence, using their own hand to manufacture evidence. A new level of manipulation, one none of us had been prepared for. She stood frozen, searching for another angle, another escape. But there was none. The mask slipped. Her carefully crafted facade collapsed. You weren't supposed to find out like this. Her voice was different now, colder, devoid of pretense. This family hasn't been real for a long time. I've been planning my exit for over a year, and I wasn't about to leave my children behind with him. Why? My oldest demanded, voice laced with hurt. What has he ever done except love us? Where is all this coming from? Instead of answering, she pulled out her phone, clinging to control. I'm calling my attorney. This ambush is inappropriate and potentially illegal. The recordings, the invasion of privacy. Like the recordings you made of our conversations without consent? My middle child slid another piece of evidence across the table. Cloud storage records filled with secret recordings, selectively edited to remove context. For the first time, she hesitated. Her eyes flickered in shock. How did you? Your cloud password was still my birthday, my oldest replied, voice eerily calm. You never changed it from when you set it up on our shared computer. Something shifted in her expression then. An eerie coldness, a realization that her web of lies had fully unraveled. She looked at each of her children as if they were strangers. You've made your choice, then. Her gaze snapped to me, eyes burning with resentment. Congratulations. You've turned them against me, just like I always told them you would. No, I said, finally speaking. You did that yourself when you decided to use them as weapons instead of treating them like people who deserve the truth. She said nothing. Instead, she grabbed her purse and keys and walked out the door. Later, we learned she had gone straight to the airport, catching a flight to the city where her new life was waiting. Her final act was one of abandonment, casting herself as the victim in a story she had meticulously authored. The following weeks were painful yet necessary. We went to family therapy. We cried. We talked openly about the manipulation we had endured, learning to recognize it, learning to heal. Slowly, we began rebuilding trust, in each other and in ourselves. 3 months later, the divorce papers arrived. Along with them, a custody proposal that showed she had finally accepted reality. She requested minimal visitation, holidays, summers, reduced to brief, scheduled encounters. The children, given their ages, had a say in the arrangement. Each made their own choice, some opting for distance, others leaving the door cracked for possible reconciliation. One evening, as we sat on the back porch watching the sunset, a new family tradition we had unknowingly begun. My youngest broke the lingering silence. "Do you think she ever really loved us?" I considered my words carefully. "I think she loved the idea of a perfect family, the image it projected. But real love isn't about control. Real love means wanting what's best for someone, even when it's difficult, even when it doesn't serve your own interests." My oldest nodded thoughtfully. "Then maybe we're better off building something real, even if it's imperfect." I looked at my children, resilient, strong, no longer shackled by deception, and felt something I never thought I'd feel again. Hope. We had been weaponized, fractured, nearly destroyed. But in uncovering the truth, we found something more powerful. Our way back to each other. The weapon had failed. The truth had won. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.